Emily Carter had never been afraid of silence until the day it began to follow her. Not the peaceful kind of silence people seek when they want to rest, but a silence that felt alive, a silence that pressed against her skin and made her feel watched. She had lived with that strange sensation since childhood, but she had learned to ignore it. Life was easier when she pretended nothing was wrong. Everything changed the day she inherited her grandmother's house. The house stood alone at the end of a narrow road, surrounded by tall trees that blocked most of the sunlight. The walls were old, the windows dark, and the front door leaned slightly to the left as if tired of standing. Emily didn't want to live there, but she had no choice. Her grandmother had left her the house, the land, and everything inside it. The lawyer insisted she had to stay there for 1 full month before she could legally sell it. 30 days, 30 nights. She thought it would be easy. She was wrong. On her first night, she heard it. A whisper. Soft, slow, almost gentle. It came from the hallway outside her bedroom. At first, she thought it was the wind, but the windows were closed. The whisper came again, and this time she heard her name. Ely. Her heart froze. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. The whisper grew closer, sliding through the darkness like something crawling along the floor. She realized with horror that it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the house. The next morning, she tried to convince herself she had imagined it. She blamed exhaustion, stress, anything that made sense. But the house didn't let her forget. Every night, the whisper returned. Sometimes it called her name. Sometimes it said nothing at all, just breathed softly in the dark. She began sleeping with the lights on. But even then, she felt the presence watching her from the corners of the room. On the 4th night, she found something strange, a small wooden box hidden under her grandmother's bed. Inside it was a journal, old and fragile, filled with her grandmother's handwriting. The first page made Emily's blood run cold. It said, "The house is alive, it listens, it remembers, and it wants something from us." Emily read the journal for hours. Her grandmother wrote about whispers, shadows, and strange movements in the house. She described nights where she felt someone sitting on the edge of her bed, even though she lived alone. She wrote about doors opening by themselves, footsteps in the attic, and voices that spoke when the lights went out. But the last entry was the most terrifying. It said, it wants Emily. Emily dropped the journal. Her hands shook. She didn't understand why the house wanted her or what it meant. She tried to leave that night, but the front door wouldn't open. The lock turned, but the door stayed shut, as if something on the other side was holding it closed. She tried the windows, but they wouldn't budge either. She was trapped. The whisper returned, louder than before. It echoed through the hallway, slipping under the door like cold air. Emile. She backed away, her breath shaking. The lights flickered. The floor creaked. Something moved in the darkness outside her room. She grabbed her phone, but the screen stayed black no matter how many times she pressed the button. Then the whisper changed. It wasn't calling her name anymore. It was speaking full sentences, but the voice was too soft to understand. She pressed her ear against the door, trying to hear. The whisper grew clearer. "Come downstairs." Emily stepped back. She didn't want to go downstairs. She didn't want to open the door. But something inside her felt pulled, as if invisible hands were guiding her. She reached for the doorknob. Her fingers trembled. She opened the door slowly. The hallway was dark, but she could see a faint light coming from the living room. She walked toward it, each step heavier than the last. The whisper guided her, leading her down the stairs. When she reached the bottom, she saw her grandmother's rocking chair moving gently back and forth, even though no one was sitting in it. The whisper came from the chair. "Sit." Emily shook her head. She didn't want to, but her legs moved on their own. She sat down. The chair rocked slowly. The whisper surrounded her, wrapping around her like cold fingers. She felt something touch her shoulder, even though nothing was there. Then she heard another voice. Not a whisper this time, but a clear, familiar voice. Her grandmother's voice. "Emily, don't be afraid." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Grandma," the voice answered softly. "I tried to protect you, but the house chose you long ago." Emily didn't understand. "Why me?" The whisper grew louder, almost angry. The walls shook, the lights flickered violently. Her grandmother's voice spoke again, but this time it sounded distant, fading. "Run, Emily, run." The whisper roared. The rocking chair stopped. The lights went out. Emily jumped to her feet and ran toward the front door. This time, it opened. She didn't look back. She ran into the night, barefoot, shaking, breathless. She didn't stop until she reached the road. When she finally turned around, the house stood silently in the darkness. The windows glowed faintly as if eyes were watching her leave. The whisper didn't follow her. It didn't need to. Because Emily understood something terrible. The house wasn't done with her. It never would be.